Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Matchup Strategy Show. We're back again, week 6. Got a little bit of a respite from the 13-game slates. Today, 11 games. We got 4 teams on a bye. We got banger of a Thursday night football game coming up between the Commanders and the Bears. Check out the Strategy Show with Matt Gajeski and myself. We already did that if you haven't watched that yet. And then we got the Broncos on Monday Night Football. Again, flex them out for any other team. But anyway, 11 games today or Sunday. We're going to break down everything. Like I say every week, if you're pressed on time, you only have one show you can watch every week to get you prepped for this slate. Outside of paying close attention to injuries, you have to do that anyway. We got you through and through. 11 up, 11 down. That's what we're going to do. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D. Hit me up on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Joined by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Here we go, man. What's up?
Hey, man. Happy to be here. Happy to finally be in the Thursday matchup show. It's finally the moment of the week where we can relax. We have enough information from an injuries and a projection standpoint that we can actually start to make some good inferences on the team. And as you said, we're going to try to do everything possible to get you fully ready for the weekend with one show. Grab your substances of choice, sit back, relax. Let's do this 11-game slate right.
St. Stephen just slayed a 30-pound wild turkey. Should hold me through the show. Wow, sometimes we get some good ones in here. Larry said the NFL knew Laffy was sick, so they scheduled 11 this week. Yeah, listen, dude, no joke. On Sunday when I started feeling it, so I get a sinus infection every year, man. I won't belabor this because people know I've talked about it on shows. But it starts like, it's not a sore throat. It's like the top back roof of my mouth that gets really, and I can't swallow. It hurts like hell. And that's when you know it's coming. That's when I know I'm going to wake up in the morning and life is going to be hell. So I'll just take a mega cocktail of things to get me right throughout the day. But when it happened on Sunday, my first thought was like, man, I have to do the every picks game, every game picks video on Wednesday. I hope I'm okay for that. Just Herculean doses of Sudafed got me through that one. and then today I'm like Thursday, I got the matchup strategy show. You're just sitting here talking, totally understandable that someone doing manual labor, a contractor would be like, hey, stop being a pussy. You got this. No doubt about it. But sometimes talking for hours at a time, it could be a lot when you're not feeling well. So we're on the road to recovery.
It absolutely can.
Yeah, it could be a lot, but you make my job easier on this show anyway, because you're no stranger to, going in depth with your analysis. So I think we're good to go.
Do what I can here. And oh man, also your daughter is getting to that age where all of my friends with preschool age children, we just call it preschool syndrome. What do you have? You got preschool syndrome.
Yeah.
That whatever it is, it just got kicked around the entire daycare and enjoy that life.
Well, she started going to daycare at 3 months old.
Oh, there you go.
Which is great because she loves it there now. Like, people say, oh, you send your kid to daycare, you're a bad parent. Hell no, dude. She walks in there, runs straight to the teacher, she loves it. But starting her young was awesome for her to really get her, acclimated with it. But I've never in the past, because she's been alive 19 months. So let's say last almost year and a half, I've never had so many like colds or this. You're right. I never got sick before outside of this one thing each year. But now I just call the doctor. I'm like, I've had it for over a week. I need antibiotics. Because if you don't tell them that, if you tell them it's been a couple of days, they'll be like, call me back in 10 after, if you still have it for 10 days. I'm not doing that.
No.
You know how it is. You're not doing that when you got to work. Can't just lay down all day. Come on. It's crazy.
Get me the meds.
But yeah, Steven, daycare is a petri dish. 100%. It's crazy. You'll know one day, Matt, you'll be coming onto these shows like, I
don't have trouble saying you were right, but I'm still not looking forward to that day.
Yeah. There's the good and the bad, put it that way. All right. Fanatic said, thank God my daughter has a good immune system. Dude, if you send your kid to daycare when they're young, guaranteed, no matter what, their immune system gets good because they've gotten all of the illnesses out of the way.
Oh, heck yeah. You got to eat a little dirt.
You got to eat a little dirt. My wife gets so mad at me when, like earlier, did you wash your hands? I'm like, dude, she's in daycare all day. She'll be fine. I'm not talking about walking out of the bathroom after firing one off. Like, nah, my hands, I'm not Josh, But Like, oh, did you wash your hands after being outside? She's going to get sick. They're young. They're going to get sick. She's had everything in the book. She's been pretty good ever since. So we'll chalk that up as a win, Matt.
I think so.
All right. So football, 11 games. Super happy to have you guys with us as always, by the way. I know only the most dedicated of those of you who watch the Stokastic Fantasy or DFS channel are with us every Thursday from start to finish. And we appreciate you for that. It is not lost on us. We appreciate the fact that you hang with us the whole time. Would also appreciate a thumbs up for sure and a subscribe to the channel because that is massively helpful for us, helps us keep the lights on, atone for your sins, allow us to appease the YouTube overlords, man. Genuflect before them and offer up a sacrifice, which
as we kneel down to the like button,
which is likes.
Yeah.
And subscribe. Hit that join button if you want to get in as well on all the perks that we have on the channel. If you listen to podcasts too, thumbs up subscribe to the podcast. And if you like it, leave a rating and a review. That helps us a lot. All right. So we've ordered these from best to worst in terms, not best to worst, highest total to lowest total.
Right.
No surprise that Buffalo, Kansas City gets us kicked off on this slate. How about Patrick Mahomes being a home dog for the first time ever as a starter?
This is weird. And I feel very, very scared about betting against him, but I understand why. The salary is very high and the defense he's playing is very good, right? And schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. We're going to need a counter for that eventually too. That contextualizes the defense. Don't worry, producer Tyler. It contextualizes the defensive fantasy points allowed for the offenses.
Just don't say fast when you mean quick.
Yeah. Anyway, schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed simply just adjusts the fantasy points that a team has given up for the offenses and how they've performed in the past before that defense faced them. Buffalo Bills are number one in the NFL in that metric. Your Philadelphia Eagles not too close behind. I still think the way Patrick Mahomes is playing, he can throw against anyone. I'm sorry. You still don't have Trey White back this week. He's practicing, which is awesome for Buffalo. But the idea that you just completely shut down Patrick Mahomes, I think that's a low probability outcome. We still have him in the top 4 among quarterbacks in terms of median projection. But being third in salary means he's only in the you can play him tier, not the must play tier.
It's such an odd game because 54-point total. We could dive into Buffalo a little bit more because Kansas City is very weird in the sense of eventually a guy like MVS has to go. Eventually a Juju has to score a touchdown. It's amazing how they've been held out of the end zone this entire year. While Travis Kelce has like 24 yards on 7 receptions and 4 touchdowns.
He's not even getting tackled on those touchdowns. Like
crazy.
It's insanity.
It's crazy. We'll get to that. But with Buffalo, there's just so many ways they can beat you. Dawson Knox, limited practice. He didn't practice at all last week. So I really have zero idea if he's going to be on the field. Don't think it matters all that much. Isaiah McKenzie's a full practice off the injury report. But man, Gabe Davis coming off just a remarkable game. If you didn't have Gabe Davis, what a miserable experience the first 20 minutes of Sunday were. That is the
good night to your
worst.
lineups.
Dude, that's the worst. I remember, I'll never forget the Eric Ebron 3 touchdown game. And I think he had all 3 in the first half and he had a rushing touchdown. And you're like, okay, I don't have Eric Ebron. So turn the TV off, close the laptop. It wasn't that much with Gabe Davis, although he was in the winning Millie Maker lineup with, by the way, Josh Allen, no run back, which I get. And then 3 solo Bucks without Tom Brady, obviously. So interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But he was awesome. The thing with Gabe Davis though, is he's more likely than not, more weeks than not, he's just not going to be the target share leader, the target leader in Buffalo. He's just, he can make huge plays. He's a massive deep threat, but Gabe Davis is a guy that you're really hoping on his 5 to 7 targets is going to get you there. And that worries me, even with a great offense.
5 to 7, we're happy with it. I mean, he hasn't seen 7 targets yet, Laffy.
I know. Yeah. Well, okay. 5 to 6. He's got 5 to 6 in 3 or 4 games, right?
5-6, 3-6 this year, but obviously insane efficiency, insane touchdown rate right now. What is his current touchdown rate? He's scoring a touchdown on 27% of his targets.
Pretty good.
I think that's going to come down a little bit. I think that's eventually going to come down. At the same time, this is probably a sign of a very efficient player who deserves more opportunity. His opportunity value in terms of expected fantasy points per game, it's actually pretty low, outside the top 50 receivers. So what we're saying is Gabe Davis is good and on a good enough offense and in a good enough game environment where he can overcome that low opportunity value and succeed. I absolutely have no problem with you making that bet once again, going back to the well.
Okay. What about Diggs?
Diggs is one of the most, I almost feel like he is underrated just because we take it for granted how often he succeeds. I'm just looking at right now, we have a projection ahead of salary-based expectations. Put it on the board. He needs about 25 points to feel really good about it in terms of like 3x value in a GPP situation. And even the fact that he's looking like he's going to be 18% owned, I think it's justified. He's not my absolute favorite play on the slate. He's not a screaming value, but in this game environment where we would be shocked if points aren't being put on the board, if you have the salary for Diggs, play him. My goodness.
Yeah. Someone asked about Shakir. McKenzie's going to be back, so
I thought Shakir looked good past the eye test.
He did, but he was only on the field for 16 snaps the week before that. So, I'm not confident that he's going to be getting a ton of opportunities in this one.
That's fair to say.
I mean, do you think he is with McKenzie back?
I just think when you're a coach, you say, okay, there's an injury, 2 injuries in the receiving core. We have to bring a rookie player from a 25% snap share in week 4 to a 71% snap share in week 5. And they respond with catching 3 of 5 targets and turning it into 75 receiving yards on 87 air yards, 16.5 fantasy points, by the way. They're going to be impressed, and they might just give you more playing time.
Okay. Yeah, 11-game slate, though, kind of tough. For me, at least. But he's cheap. Kansas City. This one just gets really, really difficult. And the obvious, I guess the answer here is kind of just, for me at least, I'm going to want pieces of Kansas City. I just would be lying if I told you that I had a great read on who the guys were going to be, because just go ahead and look at this team and look at the target share. Neil and I talked about this yesterday on the ownership first look show. You look at the target share here outside of Travis Kelce, who is sitting at the top of the team with 23%, which isn't crazy, but still Kelce's the man. He's going to get all the a ton of end zone targets as well. Juju's at 19, MVS at 17, Edwards-Helaire's at 9.9, Hardman at 9.4, Sky Moore, Jerick McKinnon, 6.1, Noah Gray, 5.5. There's any given week outside of Travis Kelce, it could be anybody, but kind of the problem here is it hasn't really been anybody. You've got those spike weeks from Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting those unsustainable receiving touchdowns. And McCall Hardman had a couple end zone targets, a touchdown in week 1. You don't know who it's going to be each week.
So yeah, this is where opportunity value based on expected fantasy points really helps us, right? We can look at the volume and sort of separate this out and see if based on where they're getting the ball, anybody outside of Kelce has enough opportunity value to chase. Clyde Edwards-Helaire fits that mold for me. In terms of salary, he's 10th on DraftKings this weekend. We have him 12th in expected fantasy points via PFF. The projection doesn't look good, but again, if you're just rating the volume and the game environment, and I think the player is decent too, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just fine. McKinnon looked honestly really good on Monday night. I know the Raiders' rush defense isn't anything to write home about, but still looked like he was suddenly ahead of Pacheco on the depth chart. And then let's do the same opportunity value examination of the wide receiver core. Juju Smith-Schuster, 8.9 expected fantasy points. That's about 30th on the slate. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, 8.6. Mecole Hardman, 6.7. We're talking about you don't even have to worry about them that much on a main slate if you don't have to. Obviously, these are good attachments to this possible shootout, but it's Kelsey or bust, man. Like CEH is a slight pivot down, but at 7,800, I just have no problem here and no issues finding a way to see Kelsey getting 23 points, which is what you need to feel good about him in a tournament.
For sure. I will say though that I think I like MVS a little bit more than you do. Ownership plays a role here for me. If he's going to be very popular, then I'll happily pass on that. But I think when you're seeing and you're looking over the last, 4 weeks? So since week 2, you're still seeing a pretty decent target share here from him. 19%, 7, 7, 5, and 8 targets over the last 4 games. He does have the ability to catch a deep touchdown. We saw that in Green Bay. It hasn't materialized yet, unfortunately. And this isn't a great matchup against Buffalo either. But 4,500 in a guy like MVS, assuming he's not super chalky. If he's super chalky, you were kind of alluding to this in the sense like you don't have to get to any of these guys. I totally agree. But if he's not, and you're just getting, basic, mid-single digits on him, I think 4,500 is more than reasonable in a 54 total game where you're talking about a guy that's averaging 7 targets per game over the last 4 weeks.
I saw the same thing when I was looking at it, but right now our latest run of ownership has MVS topping 10%.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much.
I'd rather go down to Mecole, who, as someone was pointing out in chat, Hardman looked like he was getting more involved as the game went on. That was a weird start to that game for Kansas City, but still Hardman with not very many less expected fantasy points per game compared to MVS and Juju and a quarter of the ownership. That's appealing to me.
Sure. And MVS, his opportunities, while they've been scarce, a lot of them are deep balls or they've been in the red zone. So that's not bad at all. I would rather that than somebody that's just getting, in between the 20s, 8 yards deep, because that really does nothing for us whatsoever. But he's got 4 red zone targets, 3 inside the 10. I'm cool with that. Let's go. Let's move on unless there's anybody else you want to talk about.
No, we can move on here. The stars from this game. Even if you want to take a chance on Sky Moore, 1% ownership, that's fine. The one I'm fading right now, Dawson Knox at 6%. If he hits, darn.
Sure. DFS Ed, plus they drafted Mecole to replace Hill. He just hasn't stepped up to do so, nor does he have the talent to do so. You could say they brought on MVS nobody's ever going to replace him.
Right.
But at MVS, they drafted Sky Moore. They've
been taking shots.
Yeah. They drafted Sky Moore in the second round, higher than Mecole Hardman was drafted in his class. So I don't know. But I mean, Mecole Hardman's been on the Chiefs I don't think they drafted him to replace Hill. They drafted him so they could have another wide receiver because it was just Hill and Kelsey for the most part. DeMarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle weren't getting the job done. All right. Yeah, this is like Hardman's 4th or 5th year, isn't it? It's definitely
his 4th season.
He's definitely already played 3. I think it's his 4th year. Yeah, this is his 4th year. Drafted in 2019. Arizona at Seattle. All right, let's have some fun. Seattle's an over machine right now. Bad defense. Geno Smith looks good. Good weapons and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Good thing they drafted Ken Walker in the 2nd round because the fractured fibula sidelined Rashad Penny for the year. But let's start with Arizona. James Conner's not practicing. He's questionable. Darrell Williams not practicing. He's doubtful. Clearly Eno Benjamin's going to become the chalkiest of chalk if neither of these guys play.
And the game environment too, the situation. Let's just look at this in terms of percentage chances that it goes over its game total. Now the game total, sits at 50 right now. So it's 50 and a half, second highest on the slate. Obviously, that's why we're talking about it second. I think in terms of chances that this goes over a touchdown over that total, it's the highest on the slate because these defenses can't stop anybody. And both of them have offenses that when they decide to show up, actually can move the ball and be productive. And then we have the final extra cherry on top. We are starting to get a consolidation of opportunity, especially in Arizona. In the backfield, you mentioned it. It looks like there's only one healthy running back. Connor is leaning towards closer like a game time decision, but I don't trust him. Eno Benjamin, by the time we get to Sunday, may be the chalkiest running back at 4.6K.
I think he should be too. He's going to be involved in the passing game for sure.
Absolutely. I still really like Marquise Brown. I like him even more than our initial run of projections like him. We have him right at salary-based expectations, which means that 10% ownership looks a little steep. I don't know, especially with this defense they're playing against being bad in series success rate, worse than the league. Marquise Brown being used like a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 5 in expected fantasy points, 7,200. That's a very appealing salary to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at just, last game when you're talking about, just sheer consolidation of targets. Ertz and Brown combined for 20 targets in that game. They both had 10 each. Rondale Moore had 8. Which is actually nice. He's a yards after the catch guy. Always going to be. He needs to produce in that respect. And I think against Seattle, you'll have a much easier time than you will against the Philadelphia Eagles. But yeah, I know that you're going to see Murray throw a decent amount of passes from week to week, but Benjamin, love it. I'm with you. Marquise Brown. I don't think we're telling people anything they don't already know either, right? Like this is a really appealing game, but I think the price tag is reasonable on Marquise Brown, especially in this spot. We've seen opposing offenses decimate the Seattle Seahawks secondary. They're terrible, man. They are bad. Football Outsiders has them 31st in pass defense DVOA. Arizona's 27th. Give me all the Arizona I can get, just as long as Kyler Murray isn't sliding on first down and then spiking the ball. I'll be happy with it.
Yeah, he's one too, where even if he is kind of playing, I would say mediocre for what we expect for Kyler Murray, rushing lifts all ships when it comes to quarterback play because he's 3rd in expected fantasy points, basically right there at 5th on the slate in fantasy points per game, even on a down year. And like you said, this target share is consolidating. The one player I like Rondale Moore as a talent. I like the speed that he brings to the offense, and they probably look better as a team with him on the field. But he's getting really, really popular. I realize our projections look very, very good, but how much certainty do we really have about this 4,200 salary player?
I get it,
but I think he's 4th on the opportunity totem pole in a decent matchup. That doesn't mean you have to play him like our projection compared to salary-based expectations initially looks.
No, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, 91% of snaps last week, 41 routes run, 44 for Brown, 41 for Ertz. So he's basically up there with all of the top guys. I know they were playing from behind in that game, but Seattle, it's funny with Seattle that I don't want to say they're a pass funnel defense because they're just not a good defense in general. But their run defense is definitely better than their pass defense. I don't think there's any question in that. The ownership at 14% is definitely up there. But if you're going to be on the field almost the whole game against Seattle, I just think there's multiple players that can eat and fill up, so to speak, in this matchup. So I would actually just prefer to get over the field on Rondale Moore if he's 14%.
I suppose. And, there's great ways to do this because you can skinny stack him. I even think a double stack is viable with Kyler Murray against this bad defense. And Rondale Moore, especially that salary point, is a great and likely popular run back option if you are playing a Geno Lockett or a Geno Metcalf stack on the other side.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, his ADOT was 2 yards last week. It's going to happen, but he picks up yards after the catch. We know that. He is good at picking up yards after the catch. So I'll bank on some of that, and hopefully it works. 56 yards after the catch last week. Pretty nice. And in PPR at that price, I like it. Anything else for Arizona? You want to talk about Seattle here?
Just AJ Green is an afterthought. Don't forget about Zach Ertz as a nice pivot to up from more. 42 to 4,900 isn't that big of a boost.
Man, with Seattle, there's a lot of different approaches you can take too. Ken Walker is not expensive. He will be popular. I think rightfully so in a lot of these spots though. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I don't really understand the pricing there. It's so weird that Tyler Lockett's price went down after last week. I know he didn't have 20 targets, but still he's been very productive. And DK Metcalf stayed the same. He's now what, $1,200 more expensive than Tyler Lockett?
That is so weird. That's honestly so strange.
Yeah.
They're both still absolutely viable. Lockett has a projection way ahead of the salary-based expectations for him this week, and Metcalf is right there. Both of these players honestly just look really good. These skinny stacks look really good. Our top stacks tool is leaning that way. I'm looking right now. Yeah, Seattle third in our new rating metric on DraftKings top stacks tool. And like you said, Kenneth Walker, cut, print, put him in your cash game lineup and call it a day. It's really kind of that simple. You can take large field tournament opportunities with the tight ends, but otherwise I'm just staying away. Will Dissly doesn't do anything and then just catches touchdowns, which is fine when you're just searching for a 3,100 tight end. You're attaching 3,100 in salary to the game environment. You're barely even thinking about the actual player himself. And expected fantasy points, he's only got 4.5 expected fantasy points a game. Literally nothing to write home about.
Anyone else you want to touch on? Just a great game stack here. It's going to be popular, but it is justifiably high in ownership all around.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great game stack because there aren't even that many relevant players. Like if you want to go way off the board, you're talking AJ Green, Noah Fant, Will Dissly, who have kind of viable chances. Like, but that's it. Don't play DJ Dallas. Don't do that.
The last totals in these games, the actual totals in the last 3 weeks for Seattle, 50, 93, and 71. Not sustainable, obviously, but
so much scoring.
It's so much scoring, but there's a lot of potential here for big games. Two bad defenses, two offenses that even though Arizona hasn't looked great, man, if they can't produce against Seattle, that'll be real cause for concern. I'll tell you that much.
That's true.
My Minnesota. How about this? I mean, total drops off a cliff after this. You go from 54 to 50.5 to 45.5. Granted, this was at 49.5 before this opened almost at 50, but without Tua. And now, look, even if Teddy Bridgewater's active, Skylar Thompson is starting. We know that. I actually want to start with Miami here and ask a couple questions of you. Raheem Mostert questionable for what it's worth. And Tyreek Hill's off the injury report. He's good to go. What do you think it does for Miami with now that Mike McDaniel had a full week to prepare with Skylar Thompson? Now, look, normally you'd go nothing, and maybe you'll say nothing. But just the idea that you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle who can create yards on their own, do you think maybe that they go into this with a better plan of attack than they did last week when they had no intentions of throwing Thompson into that game?
Well, I think the answer to that question is definitively yes. They'll have a better plan of action. I think what it really does, if you want to try to quantify it a little bit, or at least try to create some strategy off of it, is it increases the chances that one of Waddle, Hill, or Mostert has a spike week beyond something like 1% to 2%, which is that low, which is how low I would have considered it last week when Thompson entered the game for Bridgewater. Both Hill and Waddle are players who are absolutely fine eating on days with an ADOT below 3 yards and just taking several dump off passes and doing what they can from a yak perspective. Do I think both of them get it done, even against a Minnesota defense that I'm not scared of with Skylar Thompson at the helm? No, I don't. But I think you can take a chance on one of those three players, knowing that ceiling potential is closer to that 5 to 10% range instead of that true 1% outcome.
What do you want to do with the skill players for Miami?
So both Hill and Waddle, I think, are appropriately priced. I think I would have to lean trying to get up to Hill right now. Hill's at 7,500, Waddle at 62. I know it's a big difference. And right now the ownership, there isn't a big difference. I think 3.5% is our expectation for Waddle, about 5.5 for Hill. Honestly, Hill is the one I want. Even with Bridgewater, the way he came in and Hill was just peppered with targets, there's an amount of separation that I think that Hill can create for a young quarterback that is really appealing. If you're saying, well, I'm just going to go with the lower owned player who has already proven his talent in his second year in the league, fine with it, but Hill is my choice.
I like Hill too. At 5%. Plus, it's not like he has a tough matchup. Very nice matchup against Minnesota. This Minnesota secondary has not been good at all. And they're also a very interesting team when it comes to stacking. And I'm not saying you go out there and you stack Skylar Thompson. Okay. What I'm saying is Minnesota's secondary has been beat up. They've allowed a lot of points. This team has allowed a lot of points. You're talking about, a 29-22 game against Chicago where Justin Fields started making a comeback, and then Marset, was it Smith Marset? I always forget how to.
Emmer Smith Marset, yeah.
Yeah. Marset goes in. Is that? Yeah, that's it. For Chicago, and on his only catch of the game, fumbles.
Yeah.
They were moving. Chicago has allowed, or the Vikings, have allowed. Sorry, I still got foggy brain here. 25 to New Orleans without Alvin Kamara, without Michael Thomas, without Jameis Winston. 24 to Detroit, 24 to Philly in the first half alone. They are a team that's going to give up some points. So they're also going to score, and that's what makes Hill interesting. If the Dolphins are forced into a heavy passing approach, which could definitely happen when you've got Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook on the opposite side, it might be ugly, might not be pretty, but Tyreek Hill might see a ton of work.
Exactly. I just see a lot of ways this can succeed with Tyreek Hill, right? Because the other way he can also happen is he doesn't get a whole lot of volume, but then he gets someone chucks it up to him and he catches 2 of them, and suddenly he has a touchdown, 120 yards. We've seen those types of games too. And then on the Minnesota side, the usual suspects are totally in play. Minnesota's defense is unraveling. I realize they'll get Xavier Howard back likely this week, but they're bottom 3 in Football Outsiders DVOA, bottom 2 in pass DVOA. That's usually a bad thing when Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are lining up on the other side.
Dude, we had a comment in chat right now from, where is it? Jeremy. What's up, Jeremy? He said, so sounds like stack Minnesota and just bring back a Dolphin. I'm totally on board with that. Yeah, I think that's very viable. The game still has the 3rd highest total on the slate, and that's with Skylar Thompson at the helm. They're only 3.5 point dogs, depending on where you look. So, yeah, I could absolutely see a Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson just blow up game, and then a Tyreek Hill or a Waddle on the other side of this one, getting you there. That doesn't sound crazy to me at all.
Not at all. I mean, this is a game stack. There's a huge tier break in game totals we should mention, right? There's, a 4-point implied total differential.
I did mention that, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Look at you. I'm getting ready for the next salary-based expectation counter, and you're just firing off.
Yep, hit it at the beginning of this game, right out of the gate, baby.
There you go. So really the only players that you're considering because of the shootout potential, Irv Smith, KJ Osborne, only one of those 2. And outside of that, I don't think I want anything to do with Gesicki. Neither does the field, right? But I guess I will have over 0.8%, which is what currently is his ownership right now. Gesicki could catch touchdowns here. And expected fantasy points, it hasn't been pretty. But even in this game, again, high shootout potential, and then only a couple of non-popular one-offs. I will say, I think Alexander Madison is an interesting large field tournament because he keeps getting usage at opportune moments, like pass catches near the goal line. That'll work sometimes.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of those. He had a couple rushes inside the 10 last game. I was hoping for a 3rd Dalvin Cook touchdown. Try and get greedy. Needed to get greedy last week. Some high scores.
Seriously.
But 2 bottom 5 pass defenses. 2 bottom 5 pass defenses.
This is awesome that we have 2 matchups with at least competent offenses when healthy, and all 4 of them terrible defenses.
No doubt about it.
In Arizona, Seattle, Minnesota, Miami, and then 2 of the best offenses we've seen in the last half decade going at it.
Very true. Yeah. Back-to-back games. I love it. All right. New York Jets at Green Bay. I actually took 7.5 yesterday with the New York Jets. Look, do I feel great about it? No, obviously not. But this is not the same Packers team. You can say what you want, but blowing that game, and they're in London, whatever. Blowing that game against the New York Giants team, whose number 1 receiver was Darius Slayton, and Barkley's playing with a messed up shoulder, and they don't have a good offensive line. Daniel Jones has been pressured at a higher rate than anyone in the league, and you're up 17-3. and you just completely blank in the second half. Like, I'm not saying they can't come out here and run the ball down the Jets' throat or something, Matt, or maybe Rodgers and Dobbs and Randall Cobb, who had double-digit targets last week, can spring back to life. But they're not a team that you should feel comfortable with right now.
Not in the slightest, man. That was egregious. Like,
egregious.
Say it. Like, that is something where if we didn't have more just built up respect for Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur, we'd be like, why aren't you on the hot seat? You cannot lose that game to that Giants team, who, give Dable and the front office credit. They've created a situation where they can succeed, even though the talent is still lackluster. But they had no business winning that game, New York. They truly didn't. And so the Green Bay Packers, at a certain point, first of all, they need to find somebody who can catch passes, and they need to figure out what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers. I don't want any part of Aaron Rodgers right now. He's not really chucking the ball downfield. He's not playing aggressively. 16.5 expected fantasy points per game is 16th among quarterbacks on the slate. His ceiling potential is low. At 6,100, again, quarterback adjusted here, you have to have about 30 to 32 points from a 6,100 salary quarterback to feel really good about him. Is Aaron Rodgers really getting 30 points? I mean, it's possible against the Jets, but I don't have any faith it's happening anymore.
I don't either. I mean, maybe Aaron Jones is the guy, but Aaron Jones isn't cheap. Aaron Jones has had one game that would have paid this salary off all season, right? Mm-hmm. One game. That's it.
I think we need to also start giving some credit to Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Donald Driver, James Jones for making Aaron Rodgers look really, really good when maybe he's just pretty good. At a certain point, if you take enough superstar play around out of any receivers, any quarterback's receiving core, they're going to look worse. But this is worse than I thought.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of that, but also the fact that Rodgers has been in the league since 2005, too. He's no spring chicken.
I guess so. Just in sports. Bad take. Come on. I don't know. What about it? What has impressed you about Rodgers' play? Minus 1.3 fantasy points below expectation per game. Quarterback 14 on this slate in fantasy points per game. The pace isn't the pace is actually quite low. They're rush heavy, and when they do pass, they don't pass downfield.
No, I'm just saying it is his 18th year in the league. The guy's not young anymore. Like, Devontae Adams isn't exactly having a Green Bay type season in Las Vegas either. What about that? I mean, he's out there murdering cameramen.
Don't even get me started on that one. What's that guy doing running across the tunnel right then?
See, I think Devontae Adams is real messed up for doing that.
All right, we can go down this road.
I bet you thought I'd have a different opinion on this one.
I don't know.
The guy's an idiot for running in front of him like that. But and also real jerk for suing. I mean, come on. That's where I draw the line.
Thank you.
But Devontae Adams, and I know you're pissed off, but Devontae Adams coming in there like that, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that either. Control yourself, dude. You're pissed off.
I think it's fair to say don't shove someone to the ground.
Control your
at
emotions.
all times.
Control your emotions. That's all. Yeah. We're grown men here. We're grown men. I know most people are on Devontae Adams. I don't have a side here. I think it's ridiculous that this guy's trying to sue. He's going to show up to work in a neck brace and take pictures in the hospital, or one of those things where like the arms and the legs are up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like you see in the cartoons.
Oh, man.
And which is ridiculous.
They're settling for an unknown amount sooner rather than later.
I would have found a way to get in touch with Devontae Adams and be like, listen, you send me some money, and this all goes away. That's what I would have done. So then you never know that I'm the guy who tried to sue Devontae Adams. But I got a little something coming my way too. I think that's the move right there.
Yeah. You're out of your mind.
Oh no. And then if he tried to put it out there and put me on blast, and just be like, I got hacked. Now I'm suing you. I wouldn't.
You've got this game plan. You've chessboarded this out. All right, we can get back to football.
Add slander to the lawsuit also, Luffy, because you got hacked and he said you were trying to blackmail him. So
exactly.
Add that on there.
Exactly. This is not a half-baked idea at all, as you can tell. All right.
I think, okay, I want to talk to Justin Sports here because you have great points. Also, you're a member. Shout out, man. Glad to see that logo next to you. But I honestly, on second thought, we have years of sample size of Rodgers being successful with receivers who, famously were not drafted in the first round. I guess what we can say from a strategic standpoint with any good or better quarterback, above average or better quarterback, they need a certain requisite level of receivers in their receiving core, or they cannot be above average. And I think we've hit that tipping point this year in Green Bay.
I am with you 100%. Who is John Galt? What's up, brother? That's a good man right there. Said Laffy's lying. He'd let it go without asking for money. Yeah, I told you that. I wouldn't ask for money. I wouldn't ask for money. Cameraman's an idiot too. But no, I wouldn't ask for money. I don't really know if there's anything in Green Bay right now, though, and we can put a bow on the Packers that stands out as just a great play. Even the backfield. One of these days you're going to have a huge A.J. Dillon game or a huge Aaron Jones game. It's just the way it is. But if that comes, there's opportunity cost there as well if we're chasing those on main slates.
Exactly. Like that's a large field thing to chase here. It's a high enough total game. You can explain the narrative about how Green Bay actually has a get right game. And in the second half, after Aaron Jones does some initial damage, AJ Dillon cleans up, has some huge gains, and then suddenly is in the optimal lineup. I don't think you need to chase it if you're playing 3 lineups or doing a single entry or things like that. He is the one, Dillon, with the best projection compared to salary-based expectations on this Green Bay team.
There you go. Add it to the counter. Yeah. So where is it? Brandon said Jeff's defense isn't that bad. No, they're pretty much, I'd say from what we've seen, kind of league average here. Maybe a little bit below.
Maybe a little below.
But what's that?
Maybe a little below.
Yeah, a little below. But they haven't been terrible. Like they're not old Jets. And the offense hasn't been too bad. Even without having to do a whole lot with Zach Wilson at quarterback. It's not like he's been lighting the world on fire, right? First game, 50% completion rating. Second game, only attempted 21 passes. The defense looked good. The run game was on fire. I actually don't have any issues going to Breece Hall this week, assuming that the Packers offense continues to stagnate. I think Breece Hall has a lot of opportunity to put up big numbers against the Packers team that's allowing close to 5 yards per attempt on the ground. And that's many ways that they've struggled against New England. That game goes to overtime because they just ran the ball with Harrison Stevenson. Uncharacteristic pick 6 from Rodgers. Sure. Last week, just let's get it to Barkley, see what he can do.
Yeah.
They didn't have any great pass catching options. Breece Hall is awesome. You and I have been saying that on the Fantasy Football channel. Check that out. All summer, well, really towards the end of the summer, we both started to fall in love with this guy.
Yeah, like early August, we kind of we saw the forest for the trees.
For sure. And we were willing to say, hey, I think we've been seeing this one wrong. But we got there with plenty of time before the season started. Breece Hall, man, boy, he's a horse. He's going to have some huge games.
Totally changes an offense when you have a running back who can just make things happen on his own, like Breece Hall, and a wide receiver who can make things happen like Garrett Wilson. And I'm not even saying Elijah Moore or Corey Davis are bad, but sometimes wide receivers come into the fray, and the minute they start getting work, not only do they make plays themselves, but it starts opening up the field for other players. And I feel like that tipping point has occurred this year with the New York Jets offense. There was this quotable that I heard somewhere where Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson apparently had this moment when they were absolutely crushing last week against Miami, and they kind of looked at each other and they said, are we good? Are we good? Like, we might just be good. That's how I feel. They might just be good at football. And I'm not sold on Zach Wilson as anything but an average level quarterback at this point. But when you have playmakers as good as Hall and Wilson have been playing, suddenly this offense looks somewhat appealing, especially with the way that the team they're playing against has been underperforming for a few weeks straight.
100%. I'm not willing to say the Jets are good yet. I'm not. But I'm not willing to say they're bad either. I think they're probably a league average team, and league average at this season seems like, right? Hasn't it been such a weird season with so many bad? What's that?
High variance,
super high variance, some really, really bad performances across the board. I'm willing to say that they're definitely fantasy viable. Last year, they were rarely ever fantasy viable. I like Breece Hall a lot this week at his price point, no doubt. DFS said, who's the worst team in the league? It's not the Jets anymore, but I don't know. Oof. Could be the Steelers.
I think the Texans are the most devoid of talent.
Yeah. Devoid of talent, yes. That's true. Steelers are horrible. They're bad.
Yes. But at the same time, they at least have like super duper stars at certain position, like the best end arguably in the league, the best safety in the league.
Yeah. Watt's been out though.
Yeah.
But you're saying if he's active?
If he's active.
Yeah. That's that. No doubt. They definitely have far more players. They just have no quarterback at all. And that can hurt.
So if the season ended today, who would have the number 1 pick? The Carolina Panthers. They've already fired their coach. Who would have the number 2 pick right now?
Okay. I don't know this, but Washington
would have 5. They're currently tied with, so it's all silly.
How many teams are 1 and 4?
Yeah, that's part of it, right? 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all 1 and 4.
Like,
the Vegas Raiders are the current second worst team in the league.
What would the Saints pick be?
9.
Ooh, Eagles got their pick. Imagine that. Eagles.
Oh my goodness.
I know, dude. And they have their own. All right. I want to ask, we're going to move on to the next game here. I want to ask you guys a question. Simple yes or no. I want your take. Matt, I want your take as well. If I stuck you in the backfield for the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Detroit Lions, do you think across 20 attempts, you could average 1 yard per carry?
Would the bet be void if I didn't make it to 20 attempts for an injury?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You have to get through the game.
So can I do it? The line is good enough. It's not the line's fault. I should be able
it's you. Like, are you going to miss? Like, are you just going to read it wrong? Are you going to be too hesitant behind 20 attempts?
Thank you. Yeah. Stramick says, no way I make it to 20 attempts. Dude, I'm running for less than 1 yard to carry, even that line, but it's not the line's fault. I am coming out of that game with no legs and 0.1 yards per carry.
Yeah, could you imagine being out there for 20? These running back, these guys are so tough. I was telling that to my wife the other day, like watching these hits. Like these are warriors out there. It's truly insane how the likelihood that you go through a season without getting injured and banged up is 0.
I just remember, so I'm a freshman in high school playing freshman football, and beginning of 2-a-days, everyone, varsity, JV, freshman, they're all on the field together, and you can kind of see how the older guys work and everything. It's a camaraderie thing. And I remember being on the sideline and watching varsity goal line as a 14-year-old, goal line rush, and being like, oh my God, people do this on purpose. Now imagine just the league. That's my stinky little high school in Virginia, but yeah, it's just wild. Right. 20 attempts would be insane.
What if I put you out there like the kid from Little Giants that they bubble wrapped?
All right. I have enough added protection that I feel safe. Why not? Let's do it. Roll me out there.
Hopefully you've seen Little Giants.
Of course. It's been a minute.
Oh, actually, I think it was like some type of foam. It wasn't bubble wrap. I think it's some type of foam. But anyway, great movie. Icebox. All right. San Francisco, Atlanta. Atlanta 5-0 against the spread this year. I'm loving this Arthur Smith team. I really am. I'm not saying they're a good team. They're legitimately, I'm going to sound like a radio guy. They're a scrappy team dude, they fight for 60 minutes. And Grady Jarrett got fucked on that roughing the passer call on Tom Brady.
I agree.
You better agree. That's not subjective. Matt, that's not even up for debate. That was one of the worst calls ever. And it was 3rd and 5 with 3 minutes to go. Atlanta would have got the ball back.
Do you want to know what I think it really was? I know we've had so much discourse about it. We need to talk about the games, but I think when he spun the player around, there was this moment where you saw Brady's leg in the air. We all saw it. Brady's leg in the air, and the knee is unstable for that moment. It's literally just waving. And the ref has to go, oh, Brady's knee is wobbling. I literally thought that was the moment. It's like, as the wraparound happened, I was like, oh, Brady's knee is not allowed to wobble like that. He was fine, but that is just how we've seen people get seriously injured. And so these refs are on edge. I get it. You know, they're people too. So I actually side with the ref, even though I think it was an egregious call, just because I can't imagine just having to call Tom Brady quarterback games and trying to be fair about.
So don't call borderline stuff. Like I'm 100% with you. I can appreciate the human element of reffing. And I've thought to myself watching these games, who would ever want to do this? Right. Mm-hmm. It's not like they get paid a ton of money. You know, it's not an NHL ref. It's not a job I would ever want. And in many cases, I sympathize with them, but that was, to me, I can't defend that. I really can't defend what I think it has been the worst call in a crucial situation. And of course, Brady was the quarterback that I've seen in a really long time. And Jerome Boger's, I think his name is Jerome Boger. His explanation was even worse. So, or even worse than the call itself.
I think I'll just put a bow on it by saying, I think the Brady effect and things like that are real because of the human element of this, the emotional effect, which they're literally paid to push out of their minds.
I don't know. He said, what I had was a defender grab the quarterback while he was still in the pocket and unnecessarily throwing him to the ground. You're not allowed to tackle anymore then.
No, that's not the football I know.
It's not.
No, I said I don't. I said I empathize with the ref. I don't side with the ref.
You said you side with them in this one. Maybe you misspoke, but
I might have misspoke there. That was a bad call. I will level with everyone and say it was a bad call.
What do you want to do from a fantasy standpoint with San Fran in Atlanta?
Okay, this team, San Francisco, I feel like the easiest way to play it is somebody, if not two of them, who can rush the ball. Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson, or Deebo Samuel will go off. But I'm kind of thinking that there's enough in the cards here that this is that Garoppolo Kittle week where Kittle finally breaks out for 100+ yards. There's not a lot in the metrics other than Atlanta is a bad defense overall. In fact, if you look at their rush defense versus pass defense, their rush defense is worse, which is exactly what San Francisco wants to do. But I think everyone is going to play it that way. So ultimately, I will probably be with the field with players like Deebo Samuel at 11% and Jeff Wilson at 9%, but over the field on players like George Kittle, currently just 4% ownership, and even Brandon Ayuk, who, I get it, it's a long shot. The projections are not ahead of salary-based expectations, but against Atlanta, this defense that doesn't scare me at all, and like you said, an offense that tends to scrap for a few more points than people expect, I think they may have to push the tempo in San Francisco more than they usually do.
Yeah, I think so too. And Larry, are they making $230K plus? Last I looked, refs are making a lot less than that for the NFL. You can find something for me and show me. That'd be interesting. But I don't know if they're making 230, like not refs that haven't been in the league a very long time.
If you're making $230K for that half a year's salary, get rid of your Tom Brady bias. My opinion is starting to shift drastically.
Yeah.
In 2019, it was reported an average of $205,000 a year for NFL referees
as a side gig.
Wow, you got Tyler. Look up what it was in like 2015 or something if you can, because I haven't looked in. I thought it was way less than that. And look up NHL refs because I thought they make a lot of money too.
Wowza.
Hey, the San Francisco 49ers. I do think we should pay some attention to the injuries here because Nick Bosa is legitimately questionable. They just lost. Emmanuel Mosley with the ACL.
Mhm.
I'm not saying all this is going to make a huge difference. Trent Williams is still out. I'm not saying it makes a huge difference against the Atlanta Falcons, but they do have a decent amount of Jimmy Ward exited as soon as he re-entered the game. They do have some injuries there, and they're playing 2 East Coast games, but they didn't travel home. They stayed in West Virginia, so they're just going to Atlanta after Carolina. Do you have any top plays from this game? Let me ask you that.
Looking through it, I think if you just look at most likely outcome, maybe Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel are my favorites. On the other side, I know you said that there are some defenders missing for San Francisco. I kind of want no part of the Atlanta offense. Add it to the counter preemptively because the projections compared to salary-based expectations look excellent for Drake London, and I still can't trust this guy. He's number 3 in wide receiver target share, wide receiver 33 in expected fantasy points per game. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. You know what else is hard to do? Be the Giants and go 4-1 with a completely tattered skeleton crew roster. And we're going to talk about Baltimore and the New York Giants. I wanted to throw this out there to you guys first, though. If you're looking to bolster your bankroll heading into Sunday, right, where we have a ton of games, you got Monday Night Football as well. MGM right now, Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up there, we have the link in the description. Tyler can throw it in the chat right now. $200 when all you do is bet $10. It's guaranteed. Now, here's the catch. They're doing this promo for hockey right now. You don't have to like hockey, right? You don't even have to watch the game, although hockey's kind of fun. And if you have a home team playing, I would throw it on them. All you have to do is sign up using the link. Take $10, put that $10 on any team to win. And if any team scores a goal tonight, or if you're watching on Friday or Saturday, if any team scores a goal, you take that 10 and it turns into $200. It's a beautiful thing. Again, it's hockey. Bet a hockey team. Who cares who it is? I mean, obviously you want to have some fun. And in this case, I would bet a dog, really, because you don't have to win. Not like the DraftKings promo was you have to win your money line bet. Yeah, you don't have to win this bet. No matter what, you're going to get the $200. So I'd have a little bit of fun. Ultimately, the way I see this, the reason these promos are better than any promos out there, better than the risk freeze, better than the DraftKings one, is you could get the $200 and you could go on a terrible losing streak, just the worst that you remember, and you're still only down $10. Or you go on a mega heater and you turn the $200 that you got for $10 into 4 or 5 figures, and you had a massive NFL season. So take advantage of it. Link in the description, link in the chat. And last thing I'll say about this, even if you're on the fence, if you're betting, having accounts on multiple books is huge to be able to get the best odds on every game, on every prop, which can vary wildly across books. Have accounts and on different books. And in this case, you're going to bolster the bankroll without having to deposit anything out of the gate. So bet MGM.
One thing too, dude, because the same thing, and sometimes we can be, as analysts, we can be a little sheepish about this, right? Where we're saying, hey, we want you guys to join this new sports book, find your way there, please. But at the same time, this is the best way to differentiate yourself, to understand the game that we're getting into. It's just, I don't know. There's just no better time to get into. I lost my train of thought. I got excited for the next game, but get in there today.
Yeah, and you'll have the 200 for Sunday. So boom. All right, where are we at? Let's go to the Baltimore Ravens, New York Giants. Rashad Bateman's still not practicing. Justice Hill missed practice again as well. Kind of interesting, but I still think Baltimore is a much better team here. I know they've blown some games. I know they've had some collapses. I can't back the Giants in this game. And it feels like eventually Baltimore is just going to have a massive, blowout win. I'm not saying it's this week, although this did just move from 5 to 6. But what do you want to do? The first question out of the gate, what are we doing with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson?
We're playing them. It's a great weekend to play 2 tight ends. It's a great weekend to play Lamar Jackson. Which weekend isn't? I think we can safely say that the Giants are overperforming their team-based expectations, but they are not a good team yet. Baltimore, I think, is a defense that has struggled and has gotten back on the right foot, but we know how this offense is going to operate. Lamar Jackson's going to dominate. Mark Andrews is going to get his. And from there, we can take bets on Duvernay, on Bateman if he plays, on J.K. Dobbins, who's talented enough. But honestly, this is a smash spot for me. I think they crush the Giants.
Yeah, I feel the same. I hope I'm right. The Giants have been a tough team to get right this year, for sure. Actually, I was right about them 2 weeks or against Dallas. That's the only other time I bet them. Oh, and actually, I bet the Giants money line in week 1 against Tennessee. What am I talking about? But last week, did not expect an epic collapse by the Green Bay Packers. That might be more an indictment on the Packers, to be honest with you, than anything else. I don't know. We'll find out. You want to do anything with the Giants this week? Oh, and Saquon Barkley. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on that injury, that shoulder. Not at practice yesterday.
That's right. I think it's precautionary. I think he almost really hurt it, if that's a weird way of saying it. But if there was any structural damage, he wouldn't have come back into that game. Player I'd like to see play is Kadarius Toney. I don't know if we'll see him. We can't trust anybody in this wide receiver core for the Giants. If you're playing a Millie Maker and you're like, well, I'm playing Lamar and I have Mark Andrews, I'm going to do a run back option. Sure, go for it. I guess Richie James might look the best for us. Oh, but it's disgusting. It's just disgusting right now. Honestly, Daniel Bellinger as just a punt tight end kind of seems interesting to me. 3,200.
Yeah. I think I'd probably go to Slayton.
1% own, needs about 11 points at 3,800 to feel good about him. Just needs one big play. I see that.
Clearly, Brian Dable was not a big fan of his early in the season because he wasn't getting any opportunities at all. But last week, he was, the most heavily targeted player on the team. He's been in New York playing with Daniel Jones for a while. He has some ability to catch the deep ball. I don't think it's the craziest idea that Darius Slayton could be one of those guys that if you're looking for a run back, and I'm not saying you need one, but if you're looking for a run back, Darius Slayton could be viable.
Makes sense to me. This is a receiving core that is just needs to be totally revamped. Golladay, what a bust.
Big time. Taking
up incredible amounts of the salary here. I'm looking at the air yard share for this team right now. Golladay technically leading the team with nearly 30% of the team's air yards. Is that correct? Oh no, it's last year. What am I doing here? Man, this team is a mess. Richie James is still the one that sticks out to me. And Slayton, as you said, in the games he's played, 47% of the team's air yards.
There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Jones loves him downfield.
Yep, that's what we need. We need big play potential because I don't think you're getting volume monsters. Certainly not outside of Saquon.
No, I don't think so at all. All right. Anybody else here? I think we can move on.
I think this is a move on spot. This is not a team I'm targeting outside of the top playmakers in a large field.
All right, let's go to Tampa and Pittsburgh. Really, really weird game. Really, really weird game because these two teams are two of the worst first quarter teams in the league right now. Tampa has been crawling out of the gate. Pittsburgh they haven't learned to crawl yet. They haven't found the gate. Seriously, this offense is dismal. But the Tampa Bay Bucks offense, man, it's a little concerning. And now you've got Godwin dealing with a hip injury. That's new, actually. I think he plays. Julio Jones didn't practice again yesterday. Russell Gage didn't practice. He's got a new injury that popped up. So I don't know. He's played through these injuries, but how much impact does that have on him? I mean, obviously Tampa Bay, the far superior team, they're 8.5 now point favorites on the road, but it's been kind of tough this season that we haven't gotten those massive blow up games from Brady and company that we were expecting. And a lot of that is the result of injuries, constantly ruining some of these spots.
What do you think about single entry, doubling up Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette and just capturing the immense touchdown upside of the Buccaneers offense without having to do much of the guessing at all? So you get every rushing touchdown, every passing touchdown, which we assume are going to come in droves. I'm not necessarily considering that for a large field type of stack, But in a small field, I think where you don't have to get every single thing right, I think you're capturing a ton of the upside of this offense in a great matchup.
I did a lot of that last week, actually.
Brady and Fournette.
With Godwin, yeah, or with Evans. Yeah.
It's not salary prohibitive. 7,400 is fine for
it's
Fournette.
Doable.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going Brady Fournette, I want another pass catcher too, like a Godwin or an Evans. But yeah, Fournette is very involved in the passing game. We saw it last week. That was great for them. I think it was Brady's only passing touchdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or maybe
11 targets. Brady threw 52 times against the Falcons. They like to throw the football. We knew Fournette was going to get there sooner or later. He's just too involved in both phases of the offense. I still love Fournette. I wasn't even shit talking the Bucks there. I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff that you wish would, it's not as a fine-oiled machine or well-oiled machine as you would have anticipated. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. In pass rate over expectation, though, game script adjusted pass rate, they're back up there with the Bills and Chiefs as some of the most pass-heavy teams in the league. So that part we like.
Yeah. I still want to go back to Tampa here. Somebody asked about a run back. I don't think it's necessary. I know Alex would probably disagree with me here. So if you want to take his word on this over mine, do not blame you at all. But Tampa just has such a good defense. They don't create good shootout conditions, particularly against a really bad football team with a really bad offense. So either I'm not stacking this game or I'm probably not getting a run back in there. We saw last week, you didn't need a run back for Buffalo.
That's true. I kind of like George Pickens, who's got nothing but great volume since Pickett came in at 2.7% ownership. We got his projection right below salary-based expectations, but I think that has to do mostly with Deontay Johnson's career target rate. Because we use historical data when we create our projections. That target rate for Deontay Johnson that he's always seen is going to pull the limited production of Pittsburgh towards him. But I don't necessarily think that always happens if you play out this game over and over, if you simmed it out. I think George Pickens might be the one in Pickett's eyes. And if that's the case, at under 3% ownership at an easy salary to get to, I think that's very appealing as a run back.
I don't have any issues with it. I just am not enamored with any of these guys either. Outside of that game against the Chiefs, and I think you and I talked, I think I mentioned this last week I don't know when I mentioned it, but Patrick Mahomes, it wouldn't have mattered if there were 15 Bucks defenders on the field. It was just one of those days. Like he was just going to carve you up. But man, the Bucks point totals they've allowed this year outside of that Chiefs game, 15 to Atlanta, 14 to Green Bay, 10 to New Orleans, 3 to Dallas. Really, really stubborn defense.
They're a good defense unless they're facing Patrick Mahomes, who is just in God mode. Yeah.
God mode. That's exactly what it was. But I think you might just have to bite the bullet with a lot of these Bucks players and understand that they're still big road favorites. And like you said, they are going to throw the ball even in positive game scripts. So I like it. Anybody else for Pittsburgh?
I will specifically say I'm out on Najee Harris. They keep saying they want to use Jalen Warren more, a different kind of back, a speedier back. And Najee Harris on a team that was winning all the time, Najee Harris could be like Jonathan Taylor level good for fantasy. Not that he is at that level, but he could be that effective on a team that's winning all the time. On this type of roster, he's worthless for DFS.
For sure. It's ugly. And Freiermuth dealing with a concussion, so that's worth paying attention to.
Don't think he's playing.
No?
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay. New England, Cleveland. Ooh, all right. Damian Harris got a limited practice in yesterday. Kind of surprising.
I think it's BS. I think it's typical Belichick just having them stand there so they can get a limited tag like Mac Jones early last week.
Entirely possible. Mac Jones limited too. Listen, if Harris is out, I'll tell you right now, no problem eating the chalk with Ramondre Stevenson. There were only 2 active running backs last week, so when you look and you see that he played 90% of snaps, it's a little bit misleading. But he's going to play a ton. He's going to be their primary pass catching back. I think, and hey, don't ignore the fact either that Cleveland's run defense has been very bad. Do you know where their run defense ranks in DVOA this year?
Where?
32nd.
Ew.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow. I did not know that.
32nd. Dead last. I was shocked by that.
Disgusting. Okay, so Cleveland, they're just a team that runs the ball and lets other people run the ball now. That's fine.
Yeah. And by the way, Matt, sorry, PFF has them with the lowest run defense grade by a mile.
So we have Stevenson, the easiest. Like Stevenson and Walker are your cash running backs, no doubt about it. It just saves you so much salary. We have.
What if Eno's the starter and Connor's out and Darrell Williams is out too? Just throw that in there.
Ramondre is the one, and then I'm playing one of Eno and Walker, right? Because you're not going to play two running backs on the same.
I agree. Yeah,
game.
I agree.
And the fact that we have Ramondre Stevenson in terms of projections, we have him as the number 2 running back on this entire slate. So obviously, we're taking in this Cleveland fall from grace defensively very seriously in our metrics. And even Jacoby Myers started to pop. You know, if you're going to get this much volume, if you're going to enter the top 12 among wide receivers in expected fantasy points, and you're still just 5,300 wide receiver 25, you're going to outpace salary-based expectations, and you're going to be owned by me more than 10%, which is what the field is currently getting to him.
I'm with you. It's too much volume there. They want to run the football. This is not going to be a pass-happy offense here. I don't think Jacoby Myers is insane either.
Right.
But, you know, he came back and he scored. He found the end zone. He's clearly the top guy there. Another receiver in Aguilar might be out. Yeah, dude, Jacoby Myers I think he's perfectly reasonable at his price point. Not a priority play whatsoever, but if you have non-Ramondre lineups, I don't think, you know, if you had Jacoby in there, I don't think it's crazy at all.
I don't even mind just going Ramondre Jacoby as just like a little mini correlation, and then even going to other games, you know, some of the earlier ones we talked about, Buffalo, Kansas City. It's not like you're spending a ton of salary. It's 11,300 to get those 2 Patriots in your lineup against a bad Cleveland defense. And we certainly know, if you're looking on the other side, who we want to go to, the big 3 there.
Let's talk about it. Nick Chubb out of the gate, been a monster all season long.
It's awesome, man. You basically have to drink every time you call him the best pure rusher in the NFL, but all the guy does is break tackles, break long runs, and score. Like, what else can a running back do?
You can't prove me wrong. We'll put it that way. Maybe you can't prove me right. Can't prove me wrong. You just can't. So you could say, okay, well, he's had to rely on efficiency in order to be this good, and rely on touchdowns in order to be this fantasy productive. Sure. And you can say that Kareem Hunt is a valuable player and a above average talent behind him with solid opportunity value himself. Sure. Kareem Hunt is 11th among all running backs on this slate in expected fantasy points. Nick Chubb is still top 5, making his salary in the top 2 absolutely viable. But as you would expect, 6.5 fantasy points over expected per game is number 1 among all running backs this year. And that's what's really helped him. The guy's just awesome. And because of the salary difficulty, how hard it is to get to his 8,200, his ownership is just 5%. This might just be a different Nick Chubb with a different level ceiling this year. It could be. And Patriots run defense has not been good either.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these this could be just a lot of rushing attempts. And Nick Chubb is that good. He is that good that even if you're not, I would love even 3-4 targets a game, steady 3-4 targets a game. Wouldn't that be lovely? But 7 touchdowns on the season, averaging 6.1 yards per attempt.
Stupid.
And that's on, he's averaging about 20 carries per game. So it's not 6.1 on like Rex Burkhead volume, you know, he's amazing.
No, he's number 2 in the NFL in total carries.
Yeah. Who's 1?
It's
Henry?
It might be. Now I got to look it up. I just was on Chubb's player page. That's why.
Let's see. I'll tell you right now. Number 1 in the league is Because I thought it. No, I guess it makes sense that it's not Chubb.
It's Henry with
Mixon?
104. Henry with 104, Chubb with 98, Barkley 97, Mixon 96.
Mixon's been terrible.
Just all the usage, none of the efficiency.
It's a shame. Yeah. He's one of only 2 players with at least 50 snaps, I think, that's averaging under 2 yards after contact per attempt. I saw that.
Boy, Miles Sanders, 87. He is 6th. And Dameon Pierce right below him at 86 total carries.
Yeah, man. Miles Sanders, baby. All right. You want to move on?
Let me see. We got to mention Amari Cooper. He's in a good spot. Our projections don't love him right now, but looking at how Amari Cooper tends to torch man coverage and how often New England tends to play man coverage, I think this is a situation that lines up pretty well for him. Cooper has had multiple top 12 weeks in fantasy already this year. The ceiling's there, even with Jacoby Brissett. You can't predict touchdowns, but again, we're talking about a player who's already proven viable and is getting 5% or less ownership. I think he looks pretty good.
All right. Well, speaking of Joe Mixon, we're on to the Bengals and the New Orleans Saints. Quickly though, Prize Picks is the shit, and you are getting a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum when you sign up, if you haven't done so yet. No, that did not misquote anything. I didn't misspeak. Everything on our site, all of our tools, is entirely free if you sign up using the link in the description or the one that we're going to throw in chat. Entirely free. And there's up to $100 first match deposit bonus when you sign up and deposit over at Prize Picks. Sweet format, no doubt about it. Anyone that plays there loves it. But we get a lot of Prize Picks screenshots too. Like, hey, I 10x'd on the 5 prop lineup. There's no juice on either of on these props. It's just the over or the under. And you're taking 2 through 5 props, putting them into a lineup. If you hit 5 of 5, you're 10xing. Unlike a traditional parlay at a book that, DraftKings FanDuel, where if you hit 4 of 5, you only get, you don't get anything. Right. Here, you hit 4 or 5 at Prize Picks, you still 2x. You still get money back on a 3 of 5. And you're talking about it being available in all of the states that have not legalized betting yet. So that's the thing right there. Scratch the itch. And it's an awesome place to play. A million different sports. I think the thing people probably like most about it is the multi-sport entries. So like if you know college football, basketball, and NFL, you could take 2 of one, 2 of the other, and 1 of the other and throw them into a 5 prop lineup. So check it out. It's awesome. Free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. $120 value. Every tool across every sport.
Sick.
It's insane. That's what I said. It's stupid good value. And $100 first match deposit bonus over there. Use the link when you sign up and deposit. Make sure to use that link. And after you do that, download the app too. It's smooth. All right. What are you doing with Joe Mixon? Where do we go with Joe Mixon at this point in a tough spot on the ground?
I'm fading him. 10% ownership against a New Orleans defense that, while they haven't been as good against the rush this year, they're still not bad. I still don't see them as a bad defense against the rush. In fact, DVOA has them in rush defense 10th best in the NFL. Mixon's been inefficient. What else can you say? In expected fantasy points per game, Mixon is actually number 1 among all running backs. He is at minus 7.9 fantasy points below expectation per game. That's honestly hard to do. I guess you could say there's positive regression coming, but when I see a number that low, I honestly think you're either hurt or bad.
Ooh. I don't know how you can rely on Mixon at all right now.
Low game total. I mean,
it's not fun, right? Yeah, it's crazy because the volumes should continue to be there, but they kind of abandoned him in the first half of last game. I don't know. This offense doesn't look good, and T. Higgins isn't practicing either. I think they could really sputter and lose this game on the road. And Jamar Chase has been doubled. Solid secondary in New Orleans. He even said the other day, he's like, it's frustrating. I appreciate the respect, but it's frustrating. And Zach Taylor's not finding ways to get him open either. Justin Jefferson, I saw a tweet. Someone was like, hey, Justin Jefferson's doubled every game, and he still racks up yardage because they scheme him open. What about Jamar Chase? What? End the rounds out of the backfield isn't going to get the job done. So I don't know. I'm real low on this offense right now, Matt, to be honest, until they figure something out, especially when I have 10 other games, 21 other teams to choose from.
I think the big thing we have to also say is if Jamar Chase is that player you needed to win Millie Makers at the end of this weekend, we shouldn't be surprised. If T. Higgins was that player you needed, we shouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, there's a lot of warts on these profiles to the extent that you were talking about. I mean, Jamar Chase, I thought that he was going to have a Justin Jefferson-esque second season where now teams are prepared for him, but Taylor and company are scheming him open no matter what, no matter the game plan, no matter the defensive game plan. Honestly, the player who's been more effective is T. Higgins. He's scoring 2.6 fantasy points over expected per game. That's seventh highest among all wide receivers. And while he's injured, I guess he's still a fine play. Projection right at salary-based expectation. But I think Tyler Boyd is the one that actually, with essentially no ownership, could surprise some people here. With both Chase and Higgins dealing with their own issues, what if it's Boyd and not Hayden Hurst, who was the darling pick last week for the Bengals, actually being more effective?
It's possible. Just he feels like such a floor play. I'm not convinced that Higgins plays either. I know you were talking about Boyd, but I'm not convinced that Higgins is going to be out there.
If they have only one of Higgins or Chase, I think they're in trouble because New Orleans defense against the pass has been pretty okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Normally you'd go, okay, everything goes to Chase, but does it just make him even more, one-dimensional? If they can't run the football?
If they can't run the football, and you could say some of this is on Joe Burrow, but you have to, as much as passing is better for efficiency, you have to be able to do both things. And right now I just see a non-creative offense getting figured out pretty fast. And you've got Burrow essentially saying these things. They're like, I can't throw deep because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
That's essentially indicting your coach publicly.
Kind of is, yeah. Or your receivers, but I don't think it's T. Higgins and Jamar Chase that you should be upset with. I don't think Hayden Hurst is the craziest option if T. Higgins is out. He's gotten some volume. On New Orleans, I got a fun take for you. It's a lot of people would look at Alvin Kamara's game last week and say, God, that's not encouraging. I think it was insanely encouraging because yes or no, he didn't find the end zone. That sucks. Taysom Hill had 3 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown. He vultured everybody. But Alvin Kamara touched the ball 29 times. 29 touches, 23 carries, and 6 receptions, okay? He had 103 on the ground and almost 191 through the air. That's almost 200 yards from scrimmage on 29 touches. Yeah, the touchdowns didn't come last week, and that sucks. If Alvin Kamara scored last week, you're talking about a even crazier game. But 27 fantasy points without a touchdown, I can't look at that as anything other than encouraging, especially when Michael Thomas didn't practice yesterday, Chris Olave didn't practice, Jarvis Landry, even Deontay Hardy didn't practice.
Yeah, whatever his name is. I'm saying
they're going to be down to very, very few capable bodies at possibly at wide receiver. I don't know, man. If Dalton starts again, I'm going right back to Alvin Kamara.
You're not feeding into the Taysom Hill hype. You're not doing it.
I
think that's a great call. I think
in what
it's a
sense
great
that
call.
Hill starts,
or just like you're going to go back to the well after having after his huge game last week.
It frustrated me because I had a ton of stacks that he vultured a lot from in that game, but I can't. Maybe I'm wrong, Matt. Maybe I see it wrong, but I can't look away from the fact that he almost had 30 touches.
Kamara's still really good. I don't know what else to say. Expected fantasy points, 8th among all running backs. Fantasy points over or under expectation. He's essentially right with expectation. So that's just fine as long as you're top 10 in that opportunity value. And then his projection. Compared to salary-based expectations, it's right there, even against a Cincinnati defense who has been okay this year. Okay, not great. I was actually a little impressed with them against Baltimore. They're now up to 8th in pass DVOA. I say you keep it on the ground. You go back to Alvin Kamara and you go back a lot. He's going to be popular. 13% projected ownership right now.
Yeah. The price though is fine for me. Like that, I don't think you're overpaying at all at 6,700.
No, that's a good price.
Everyone was saying he was washed. The guy was playing with banged up ribs, clearly, because he looked far from what he looked like vintage Kamara last week, didn't he?
Exactly like old Kamara.
Yeah.
I got multiple texts that said something along the lines of free Kamara.
He's back
after Taysom kept scoring.
Right. I know. And look, that sucks. That's the one caveat. But Kamara would be $8K today if he had a bunch of touchdowns last game. So I kind of like that more. If he would be way more expensive. He'd be even more popular at 6,700, 13%. What I'm saying, I don't think it's that high. And if they really are down all those receivers, he's your best receiver. So, and your best rusher. So yeah, I like Kamara.
Let's hope Olave, Thomas, and Landry all play, because what limited sample size we've had with all three on the field, it looks promising. But I don't know what to make of this situation this week. All three banged up in a large field with this low of a total and this much uncertainty. I'm not sure you have to go to any of them.
Yeah, me neither.
Is Olave going to play?
I don't know. He's still only like at the third of 5 stages in the concussion protocol. So I have no idea. No idea if Landry plays. Thomas, they said, was expected back this week, but he hasn't practiced. This might be another Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith game, and that's not fun. That's not fun at all.
This one's tough to analyze on Thursday with this much uncertainty, but this offense against Cincinnati does have upside, and this game actually does have sneaky shootout potential, but to pinpoint who it's going to be right now, it's tough. Honestly, from a talent standpoint, yeah, Kamara and Olave, if he plays, man, he looks awesome. Yeah, awesome when he's on the field.
He's look good. Yeah, it could shoot. There are weapons, assuming they get some guys back in the passing game, and there are weapons for Cincinnati, but just an anemic offense for Cincinnati thus far. All right, 2 games to go. Making decent time here. Hit the thumbs up too, for those of you that have stuck with us from the beginning or jumped in late, or you're watching after the fact and you're pausing and you get stuff to do and then you come back to it. Doesn't matter. We love you all. But yeah, take a second. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. And if you guys want 3 free days of free NFL content, all of our tools, Stokastic plus NFL, all of our NFL tools. No, not Fantasy Cruncher. We don't own Fantasy Cruncher. We just host it on the site, but you can get the add-on whenever you get a subscription. I feel like I'm in a fucking DraftKings commercial where they're reading off. Have you heard those reading off the telephone numbers for the
every gamblers? State? They have to do every single state.
Insane. 199. 100. You can't. It's incomprehensible. You can't actually understand what they're saying. It's the dumbest thing ever. But it's just legal shit, I guess. Anyway, 3 free days. Link is in the chat. Link is in the description. All of our NFL tools totally free for Showdown and for main site. No strings attached. Take advantage of it. If you don't like it, you don't have to come back. All right. Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Tough one for me to say.
Indianapolis.
Yeah. I'm always so tempted to say Indiana for some reason. So I caught myself. The Jags, I took the under on Houston points last week, fortunately, and didn't lay the points on the Jags. I wavered on both of them. Really low scoring, ugly game. Houston comes out on top. I still think the Jags defense is good. I still think the offense can get it together. I like the under in this game though, with how bad each offense has been recently.
Well, if you like the under in a 41 and a half or 42 point total,
I got it at 42 and a half.
Okay. That's even better. Then we shouldn't expect a whole lot of fantasy goodness from this game. We can talk about some of the upside here. Travis Etienne continues to look better and better in terms of opportunity share. He has now passed James Robinson 2 weeks in a row. Robinson still involved at 14 expected fantasy points per game. That's 14th among running backs on the slate. And then we got Christian Kirk, who's been kind of up and down. His expected fantasy points and his projection are essentially right in line with salary-based expectations. But I kind of look at these players as like one-off pieces. Am I really needing to get here in game stacks? I'm looking on our top stack tool. Indy is right in the middle of the pack, and Jacksonville is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8th lowest among all stacks. So this is not a situation where I need to have a ton of players from this game.
I'm with you. And how about this? Can I ask you a quick 3-part trivia that I think you will score 100% on?
Let's do it.
Who leads the league in interceptions?
Defensive or quarterback interceptions?
Quarterback.
Matt Ryan.
Ding, ding. Who leads the league in sacks?
Matt Ryan.
Ding, ding. Who leads the league in fumbles?
Fumbles. It's definitely Matt Ryan.
11.
He's
21 sacks, 11 fumbles, 7 interceptions. Can we just sit back and think about that for a second? How bad that is?
That's horrible. I mean,
dude, and he's only lost 3 fumbles, but he's fumbled 11 times.
Does he have like a wrist injury or something? Can he not hold on to the ball?
I don't know, but it's insane that you like. I get being bad, but leading the league in all of those, and the Lions been terrible. They're the highest paid offensive line in the league. They haven't helped, but it really blows my mind that you go from Wentz to Ryan and he's 20 times worse.
That also, we should also say, how you make people feel on the way out of a job really matters, because I cannot tell you a single nice thing anyone in Indianapolis said in the journalism world about Carson Wentz. And it almost seemed like they were trying to will Matt Ryan to be the leader of the team they needed because of how bad Wentz treated everyone on the way out of town. Well, it turns out, crazy enough, Wentz might have actually been giving you a better chance to win. It's
mind numbing, but it's true.
And they won that game on Thursday. Like, they won that game.
I bet the against my better judgment, bet the Broncos. And I don't want to be that guy that talks about bad beats, because everyone hates that guy. And the leak in my judgment was that even though the Broncos should have won that game, Nathaniel Hackett blew it. And I should have factored that in. But you're on a 3rd and 5 at like the 20 or something. And all you got to do is kick a field goal with one of the best kickers in the league to put you up by 6 points, right? And the Colts haven't moved the ball all game long. They're sitting at 6 points with 2 minutes to go in the fourth
6
quarter.
Points in that game was 14 points in a normal football game.
Exactly. Yeah. That's 6 runs in a baseball game for the Colts at that point. No doubt about it. 6 goals in a soccer game. Call it what you will. And Nathaniel Hackett, knowing that Wilson's got a bum shoulder, takes a shot at the end zone. I deserve to lose that, because I've been shitting on Nathaniel Hackett the whole season. And in my mind, I'm like, all you had to do is kick. They had that game sealed up and they had the cover, no problem, because the Colts can't go down and kick a field goal. You have to score a touchdown on the final drive. It's bad. I can't wait till we have to talk Monday Night Football. Broncos are on it again. So it's bad. But to your point, though, the Colts won that game. Unreal.
They had no business winning. I hope Jonathan Taylor plays, so it gives us a reason to watch. I don't think so either.
I don't think he will. And I don't know if Naeem Hines is going to play. Phillip Lindsay wasn't at practice for undisclosed reasons either. Like Deion Jackson?
I guess so. Deion Jackson's season. Michael Pittman is not going to get any ownership. I think he's going to see under 3% ownership. He's got projections in line with salary-based expectation. And the one where our projections are kind of taking a stand is Alec Pierce. At 4,300, we've got him inside the top 30 in our projections among wide receivers. We see him as popular, but kind of deservedly so. His 9% projected ownership is essentially right in line with his optimal percentage when we run the Sims right now. This is a player who's just got 7 expected fantasy points per game. So while it kind of looks on paper that we might be a little ahead of our skis, these are situations where our math-based projections tend to be out in front of the field, and this might be one of those cases.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Pittman because he's getting 0 ownership, and I still think he's very good. And he saw a lot of Patrick Surtain last week. That's going to make any good receiver look less than they are. But ultimately, not a game I like. There's way too many warts here. There's way too many question marks. There's just horrible offensive play. How much is the Jags D?
That's the one I want. They're not bad at all.
3K is not bad for
They're
Jags.
the 11th highest salary running defense. Excuse me.
That's not that bad though. That's middle tier defense in terms of salary.
And that Jacksonville defense has looked much improved in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. They're number 3 in the NFL, right next to Philly, Buffalo, Denver, and San Francisco.
Yeah, give me Jags D here. I don't think the Saints D is a crazy idea either, especially if Higgins is out. But Jags D is the spot to play in this one. Ready to wrap this up?
Let's do it, man. This one's fun, actually, to finish it off.
Yeah, it is. You've got the Rams hosting the Carolina Panthers. This was 10.5. It's at 10 now. It's bounced around a little bit. No more Matt Rule. So you got Steve Wilkes in there, right? Interim head coach. Likely no Baker Mayfield, which means PJ Walker, who has won in blowout fashion in each of his 2 starts for the Carolina Panthers. Still not a fun team, but I don't trust the Rams either.
This passing offense looks bad. Outside of Cooper Kupp, obviously, who, by the way, popped up on the injury report on Wednesday.
So did Higbee.
Outside of this,
McVay said they're just trying to play it smart with them this week, whatever that means.
Okay.
I don't know what it means.
I saw a great tweet. Sorry, I can't quote who it was, but if Matthew Stafford hadn't marched that team to the Super Bowl and was playing this inefficiently, people would be calling for Stafford and McVay's head.
And they will be if this happens next year, no doubt.
This is like bad, inefficient football. 5.1 fantasy points below expectation right now. That's 21st among quarterbacks just on this slate.
Crazy.
And that doesn't include players like PJ Walker, who don't have a sample size this year to have even those stats. I think you can play Cam Akers simply because of DFS fundamentals, not because of anything in the metrics looking good. I mean, I have to take a shower every time I look at Cam Akers' advanced metrics because they're that low. But we know what playing 10-point favorite starting running backs have tended to do for people in DFS. Akers still has a 53.5% opportunity share, 29th in the league. In yards created, he's RB 51. In yards per touch, RB 56. True yards per carry, RB 67. These are disgusting numbers, but he is in the you can play him range this week.
You can play him.
Sure, not you. That's very fair.
Matt Stafford is tied with Matt Ryan in sacks and interceptions this year. Just to add to what you were saying, it's been brutal. The offensive line can't block. They can't create any yards for the running backs.
Allen Robinson's complete non-factor.
And it's like, yeah, Cooper Kupp's been awesome, but this might actually be the most one-dimensional offense in the entire league.
It's a mess right now. And, it's kind of annoying too, because what else is a mess is that entire division. So they're 2-3, playing worse than 2-3. Not only are they one game out of first place, but they are arguably in a better spot still than Arizona and Seattle. They probably just get a wild card spot at the end of the day, even after playing like shit the first 5 weeks.
Probably. They stink right now.
I agree.
If you ask me, who are you taking? And you can check out my bet picks for every game video on OddsShopper. It's out. It came out yesterday. I said, if at 10.5, give me the Panthers. As crazy as that sounds. 10.5, give me the Panthers.
I agree. I take them against the spread. I don't think they're going to win. I think picking the money line is a bad choice. But can the Rams even blow out teams right now?
I don't know.
Are we sure?
I honestly don't know. We haven't seen it. We have not seen it at all. That in mind, I don't really want anything to do with the Rams. Maybe if you want to take some shots on a lower on on the Panthers, lower on McCaffrey, that's fine. And look, I'm not totally opposed to the Stafford Kupp Higbee because, and Neil pointed this out yesterday, the concentration of targets is truly insane. It's like 60% combined for for Higbee and Kupp. It might actually be above that. Kupp's at what, probably 35. Higbee's at 25. So that's around 60, but I think it's even higher. All I'm saying is if they happen to figure something out and fix that, you have a pretty good idea, assuming those guys are healthy. You have a good idea of where the ball is going to be going. But thus far, we haven't seen Rams stacks getting us there at all, Matt. So what are you doing with this game to wrap it up on either side?
Yeah, I naysay all of this. And I still think that if you can find a way to fit it salary-wise, like if you want to go, I don't know, you probably can't do Kupp McCaffrey this week. McCaffrey at 8,300 though, like maybe you can. Maybe you can get there. Go with Kupp McCaffrey and then figure it out. McCaffrey's going to get his. We got him RB1 in projection, RB1 in salary. In expected fantasy points, it has been a little up and down. He's 7th right now among all running backs in expected fantasy points. But here's the big thing. His fantasy points above or below expectation at +2. It's up there with his best seasons once again. So from an efficiency standpoint, I feel good about McCaffrey as a player. And you know that they're going to try to keep the ball in his hands as much as possible, keep the ball out of the hands of the Los Angeles offense. And then maybe we see DJ Moore resurrect himself. But outside that, I don't think you need to go to Robbie Anderson as a 10-point underdog, nor Shi Smith. And if you want to play Allen Robinson or Ben Skoranek because they're in a decent game environment, you can, but I won't.
All right, there you have it. Follow Matt at Draftaholic. Check out everything going on over at the Fantasy Football Channel too. You're still in it. You're going strong. You need that advice, start, sit, waiver wire, all that good stuff. Any daily dose you need over there, and the Odd Shopper channel. All of our picks for all of these games and all of the sports, whether it's college football, NFL, basketball. We've been doing preseason basketball. 8 times been killing it. Baseball still going strong. We got you no matter what. Shout out to Tyler for producing this one. Remember, BetMGM promo, $10 into $200. Bet any NHL team. You don't have to like hockey. You want the free money to use for football anyway. Bet any NHL team to win. That's all you do. When you sign up using the link, put $10 down, put that 10 on any team to win. If a goal is scored by any team in any game, you're in business, and it will be. So we'll see you back here as always. Thanks, Tyler. Thank you guys for watching, and good luck this week. Peace.
See ya.